Welcome to the Spicy Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Becca Naval, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Spicy Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Naval, and I have here today with me author Mandi Graceson from the Woodville Springs Pack. And I'm so excited to have you here, Mandi. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Good, good. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to dive into your books because I'm obsessed. Just absolutely, absolutely obsessed. Now, let me give you a little history. I am a sucker for fated mates,
Yeah, me
anything
too.
shifter. Oh my gosh. So, as soon as I read like the little blurb about the first book, I go, uh-oh, I'm gonna fall in love with these, aren't I? And I did. I did. I've been telling everyone about them in our
Oh,
book club.
amazing.
Yeah, they're so good. They're so good and they're well written and I absolutely loved it. So, before we dive into that, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself, like where you're from and kind of how you got started with writing.
Yeah, so yes, you can tell by my accent. I'm not American. I am Australian. Um, Born and bred Australian in Sydney. I am a mum of two. I have two little babies. Well, they're growing up not to be babies, but they are 6 and 4. And look, I've been writing for probably about 15 years. I am a corporate marketer. So I've pretty much come into the copywriting space, doing things like that. And when I became a mum, I got into editing, I got into beta reading, I was part of ARCs and because I love reading. Who doesn't love reading? Like, oh my God, I love diving into these crazy fantasy worlds. And sometimes you need that as a mum to have a bit of fantasy. And one thing that sparked that I should be writing is I started doing a bit of sort of like ghost writing for a few writers, and one of them was actually a bear shifter romance. And I love anything paranormal. You'll find that with me. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I wish this happened and I wish that happened. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to start writing my own. And this was 3 years ago. And this is where I wrote the first one about Eden and Ashton. And then it wasn't until I had sorry, this was about 4 years ago. Then it wasn't until I had my second baby. Um, she got really sick, and I went into hospital with her. And one of the things that sparked getting back into writing again was the psychologist came in to speak to me. I've just had a baby, and she's not well, and she is perfectly healthy now. So she is a
I'm
beautiful
glad
baby
she's
girl.
healthy.
Yes,
Yes.
she's a beautiful baby girl, and I love her to bits. But she actually said to me, you need to find your outlet and you need to find that way to let your emotions out. And straight away, I thought about writing. And so then I started mapping out this whole series in my head about Woodville Springs, where all the characters and the brothers and the sisters and how they interact together. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. It's just coming out of me. Like, I really needed to let it all out. And then, lo and behold, a few years later, I launched Eden and Ashton, and my daughter had her crazy couldn't sleep motions. And then I
Oh
wrote the
yeah.
second, and then I'm just like, now I'm on a roll. And I'm just like, oh my God, I need to finish this series because I've got all these things in my head. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I read both book 1 and 2 in less than a day each. I absolutely ate them up. They're so good. Eden and Ashton, I fell in love with the story, the modern day. She's a lawyer, she's in New York, which I love New York. And and then to have her go to this like a smaller town, but it does not really a smaller town. It actually
No.
sounds pretty big, like compared
Yeah.
to, yeah. And it's how they've built that, or how they built their world, I should say,
Hmm.
quote unquote. It's just really incredible. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something different when it comes to, in my opinion, paranormal, and I loved that. It wasn't
Mm.
the typical like paranormal, like this is they shift this, but there's like so much more depth it felt like to the
There's a lot
characters.
more depth in it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there is. And I think when I was writing it, I wanted to write it for people who didn't know about the paranormal world. Like there's a lot of things that happen in the paranormal stories. You got your Amigas, you got your Alphas, you've got Lunas, all these things that you
Hmm.
don't understand. And when I was writing it, I was like, I have a lot of friends and family who don't read my type of books. So I want to write for those people and write so they don't have to, understand the world. They can just dive in and understand the storyline and where they come from and how come she ended up there in the first place. And because she's learning, so the whole first book is about her learning about this world. She's never known it. She's lived in New York her entire life, and a tragedy happens and she has to go back to Woodville Springs and discover herself, and as well discover this new town and new world, new people that all know who she is,
Yeah.
but she doesn't know who they are. So yeah, so I thought that's how I'm going to write it.
Yeah, and I just want to say I am so excited for book three real quick because I love Nora. I loved
Yeah.
her from day one. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I hoped at the time I was like, I really hope there's going to be a book about Nora. I really hope there's going to be a book about Nora because she's so good. I love her like
She's spicy.
sassy. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
spicy. Yeah, I
She
like.
is.
Oh God, I
She's
love.
like takes no crap from nobody. And
Yes.
like if you look at the dynamics of Nora, she speaks to the alpha, which you don't speak to the alpha that way. She speaks to him like, I don't care who you are. I'm going to tell you how I
Yeah.
feel. Like, and that's why I love her
Yeah.
because she's just honest. Like, and
Yes.
that's what I love about like the characters I've written. I've always wanted to write characters that are honest, and
Hmm.
they're a little bit spicy. Like I find that when I'm reading books, and you probably find this too, like the FMC is just like I just want to punch her in the just
I
go
was
on, you can
just
do it.
talking to
Like
Lindsay about that. I talk about it in my book club all the time about how I get really irritated with female main characters being just, I don't want to say dumb, but just
no,
very irritating. And
it's to me it's like they're weak. I don't like
yes,
weak
yes,
FMCs. Like I like them to be a little bit
mm-hmm,
spicy and a bit like
yes,
I can control my own destiny, and that's
yes,
what I think I fell in love with Eden because
mm-hmm,
she
yes,
she is like that. And there's a scene in it, where they call her Viper in the courtroom, right?
mm-hmm,
And there's a reason for that. She doesn't take crap from nobody. And
exactly.
and she's a martial arts expert. She knows how to hold her
She's a
own and things
badass.
like that.
She's a
Yeah, she's a
badass.
total badass. And then so like, she comes to this town, they're all thinking, oh, she's weak. She doesn't know what she's doing. She knows nothing about us, but she proves to them that she's worthy. Like that's how I see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think that's why a big part of me was like, oh my gosh, I love these books so much, is because the female main characters are just so strong.
Mm,
They have they speak their own mind. They're not afraid
yeah.
to stand up for themselves. They're not afraid to stand up to other people. And so it's refreshing, because there's a lot of books out there, where the female main character, they are really weak, and it just, women aren't like that. So
No, we're
yeah,
not
we're
like
not
that. And
weak.
that's I say this all the time. Like, you might think that person's very timid and
Hmm.
very like doesn't want to say much, but you'll find that they're probably the spiciest ones. Like, and that's what I wanted to write. I wanted to write that, that they are these women that can hold their own. They don't, and I suppose this is like a bit of an analogy, they don't really need a man. Like it's
Hmm.
that type of thing, right? They
Hmm.
can do things on their own, but when they find love, it's another piece of them that they didn't know they needed. It's that
Agreed.
type of feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
and I love, so Eden, she comes to this new city, and Ashton, I know all authors describe, the details on how he looks, but in my head, have you seen Vampire Diaries?
yes, yes.
Klaus Michelson? I don't know
Oh,
why.
is that who you picture?
That's who I pictured as Ashton. All just because I also think Klaus is very handsome. But
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
and he has that like strong kind of alpha
Yes.
personality. So I was like, my mind just kept clicking to him. So in my head, Ashton is Klaus Michelson. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
but this is, you imagine who you want,
Yeah.
right? Like I can explain who I, so I actually saw the guy that plays Reacher, the show
Oh
that's on.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw him with a cross between like a Chris Hemsworth, like
Oh
he was
yeah.
sort of like the Thor, sort of long hair, and
Very
so that's
handsome.
who I saw. But then I get other people that say to me, "No way, I saw someone totally different." Like, and that's good because
Yeah.
that's what you want. The whole
Yeah.
idea of you diving into these books is that you experience your fantasy, right? It's you, about you find who your MMC is.
Hmm.
It's not who I think he is. I write it, but it's like, oh, I love this book because this is who I see. So
Exactly. Yeah.
mm,
And it's just, and that's, I love that about books. You just can create your
yes.
own little world within your world that you have written. And Eden, she's so strong and smart and savvy and just, I love it. And the spice is amazing. Let me
Is it?
tell you. Yes. Oh my gosh. So
It's
I,
only, it's a three spice. I didn't go like full on,
yeah, but
but
it was good though. It's good.
it's nice spice.
It is
Like,
a nice
yeah.
spice. It is a nice spice. I like it. And then I feel like book two is a little spicier.
Oh yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying to, like, when I people say to me, "Oh, look, I really liked number one, but I didn't like number two." And then I get other people that
What?
say, "I love number two, but I didn't like number one." And I said, "Well,
I love
because
them both.
you're reading totally, I know, thank you. But you're reading totally different books, like number one, it's a slow burn. Like it's that whole, you get that intimacy feel, they both start feeling things, and then it happens, right? But
Hmm.
where the second one is, it's very fast paced because Jax, he was the next character here. Jax in the second one, he's a hunter, right? He's the hunter of the team. He's the protector of the pack. So his book is going to be very much like, no, like that's it,
Hmm.
I'm in. Like, whatever this is, I'm taking it. So you've got to realize that the characters of the books, like that's how I wrote it.
Hmm.
Like Eden's a lawyer. She needs facts. She needs figures. She needs to
Hmm.
understand what's going on. So, of course, it's going to be a slow burn. Same as Ashton. He's very secretive. He doesn't know what's going on and what's happening, and
Hmm.
he's sussing it out. And then, but you got number two, where Harper is fun. She's chaos, like she's crazy, and, like she wants everything now.
Yeah.
And then Jax is the same. So, but then with my third book with Nora and Oliver, um, he's the prince. He's a prince of the,
Hmm.
all the alphas. So he's very possessive. He's very controlling. So it's that type of feeling, like where he keeps pushing her away, but like, oh no, I need to bring her back. And
Yeah.
so they're three different characters. So they're three different books.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get different spice. You're gonna get different feelings from all three. Yeah.
Yeah. And that third book, is that coming out this year in spring, right?
Yes.
Summer?
Yeah, so I'm nearly finished. I'm trying to end it, right? So the biggest problem you have as a writer is ending it the right way.
Mm.
I find that, when I used to read, the ending was just like, oh, that's a bit, like I don't really want to read this again, because I really wanted that hype. So I'm trying to think about how it's going to end. But because this is a series as well, there's sort of Easter eggs in all of them as how it goes on.
Hmm.
And then, to be exclusive, I am going to tell you there is a fourth book, and
Yes.
there's a fifth book.
Yes.
So
Wait,
there is a five-part series.
hold on.
Um,
Is it Drake? Is he gonna have a redemption story? Is that no?
oh, I can't tell you.
No. I'm hoping. It's
Yes.
okay. It's
We'll
okay.
see. We'll see.
He's a
Okay.
really good bad guy. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, and he's hot, and it's
I
annoying.
right?
Like
It
how could
is.
he be so hot and be so bad? Yeah, look, I have tossed up between a few things. I've tossed up in, if you've read the first one, you hear about Alex. Eden's best friend.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of
Okay.
people are asking me, are you going to write one about Alex? And I was like, oh, I might. But I just, for this series, there's five. And then
Yes.
I might think about doing a few novellas of the other ones, because even
Nice.
people have said, I want to know about Eden's parents, like
Yes.
what happened? Why did this
Mm-hmm.
all happen? And,
Yeah.
but you'll hear more about Eden's sort of side of the story
Mm-hmm.
in Nora and Oliver's,
Okay.
because Oliver goes home to England and he then starts sussing out what's actually happened and why is everyone got all these secrets. And
Yeah.
so that's sort of what happens with him.
Yeah.
um so yeah, so it's good, but the fourth book is the twins, Logan and Zach.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
goodness. I'm
Logan
so
and Zach.
excited.
And then the fifth book is Spencer. So
Oh,
he's the last,
okay.
which is
Nice.
Nora's brother.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
He's so flirty. I love it. Like
Oh,
he is such a flirt, but in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just and he's very witty and I loved him in the first book. You know, he's just basically flirting with Eden to like make Ashton annoyed. Like
I know. I love that scene. So if I've got favorite chapters,
oh, tell me about him.
chapter five is my favorite
Okay.
in Eden and Ashton, where she meets him at the cottage.
Oh yeah.
And she says my favorite line. So I've actually created merchandise off that, because I'm like, I love my favorite line in that. And then the next chapter is the chapter where, he Ashton, says to Eden, oh, you flirt with other men and gets jealous. So then she goes, fine. So then she goes and flirts with Spencer, and they create this dynamic. And Spencer's like, what's going on here? And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, all right, I'll play along. I've got
Yeah.
this, like he clearly knows there's something going on.
Yeah. He's
And he
yeah.
full owns it. He
Yes.
owns that chapter. He's just like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all right, let's do this, And
Yes.
she's like, really like, oh my God, are you being serious? And she's trying to play along.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think, that's what I love about, pack books, all these alpha
Yeah.
books and wolf shifters and all that, is because there's a dynamic with all of them. Like
Hmm.
each person in the pack plays a role.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about writing fantasy. You can make anything up, like you can make any dynamic up, and each of them have their story and each of them have their part to play in this whole thing of with Drake, the baddie, and how it all comes together. Yeah.
Yeah. He is a bad boy. Like, especially in book two, he is very naughty. My goodness. And he's kind of what a playboy, right? He's
Oh,
got always
100%.
got women, right? Different
Always.
yeah,
Yeah.
always.
He's always
And
got a plan. He's
mm-hmm.
always scheming. He
Yeah.
knows what he wants and he'll get it. That's pretty
Yeah.
much how he is. Yeah.
He's a good villain, but I really like him. So
Yeah.
like I like a good villain. I don't know. You know. I pictured Klaus Michelson, right? So I like a good villain. But but yeah, on to book two. That book, my my heart hurt like with Harper because she just
Mm.
kept having to hurt her friends in order to save them, you know? And
Yes, that's
that
right. It's the
oh man.
choices that you make in life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Mm.
gosh, that was heartbreaking because she didn't want to. She deep down she didn't
Mm.
want to do any of that, but she had to because she was bound to Drake, and
Yeah.
that just that was sad. And that made me really sad for her because I do feel like, she for a while, she wanted to be good, she didn't want to do the things that she had to do, but she had to do them.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
had to do it to
Hmm.
save everyone. And
Hmm.
she always looked like the traitor and the baddie. And when I put her in the first book,
Hmm.
because kind of like a continuation, I was like, oh, how am I going to make it out as if she's actually the good guy? Like that they're all going, what's going on? Where is she? What's happening? And then when I put her in the first one, I was like, oh, this is perfect. She meets Jax again. So this is it. She's met him before, she meets him again, and now this starts her series, from here, So in the second book, there's chapters in it where I go back as well, like
Mhm.
where I tell the story of how she met Jax in the first place.
Yeah, I love that.
Um, yeah, and then the story continues after that and how they sort of, you know, find love
Yeah.
and move on. And yeah.
Yeah, that was made me sad too that, she basically had to hide herself from him, and even though they were
Mm.
together. And also, man, her mom, real piece of work. Like, real piece of work. She is, but in the end, she has that redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to, and that's the thing when you write books, your baddies need to have like not redemptions. I always call it like they need to have, that side of the story where there's a reason why they do it.
Hmm.
Like there's not just, oh, I'm just going to take over and this is what's going to happen. There's always a reason. And when you look at Harper's story and, she goes back to England, she finds out why this has all happened in the first place and what she has to do to sacrifice to get out of this. Her mum pretty much at the beginning uses her to free herself,
Hmm.
pretty much. And in the end, you discover that it's not that at all. It's that, her mum was working on to free us all, like to free everyone. But you
Hmm.
don't get that. You sort of feel like, oh, like, what is she doing? Like, you just
Hmm.
want to shake the book and throw it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when I wrote the second book, my emotions were all over the shop as well. Like I was like, wow, this is intense. Like what I'm thinking of here and what I'm going through and like my playlist of songs was pretty like crazy. And I kept thinking like, oh, okay, how far am I going to push this? Like how far am I going to go
Hmm.
with these emotions? But it sort of just came into play when I realized how I wanted it to end. The easiest thing about Harper and Jax's book is I knew how I wanted it to end. Like I knew there was moments in the book what I wanted to happen. So I had to go back and write the beginning after I wrote the end. Where the first book I just wrote it as we go. I was like, oh yeah, this is like a story. But I found that worked better for the second. With the third one, I'm going straight down. Like I'm going, I know
Okay.
how it wants to end, but I haven't written it. And then I'm just like sort of writing it and going down that way.
Got
Yeah.
it. Do you find it easier? Do you write a lot at your house or do you have like a special coffee shop
No,
or
no. So
at
this
home?
is my
Oh,
this is
nice. Your writing
my
space.
room.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually love writing at home. I don't get me wrong, I have to set myself up. So that's why I told you I've got my coffee.
Yep.
I've got my coffee mug ready to go. I've got my music on, my kids are playing or doing what they want. I put my headphones on and I just write. Now, look, it's gibberish. Like I just want to tell writers that you don't write like the story the first time. It's all a bunch of hocus pocus words and like, oh, you're going around. And then when you go back and reread it, it's when you start going, oh, that's what I wanted to say. And then you start editing it properly. And then you start, oh, okay, yeah, I want to say that here and that here. And then like I've got a few book club people that I talk to now, and I'm like, oh, what do you think of this? Would this work? And they're like, oh, that would be really good. And so I'm like, okay, so here we go again. And I just start going on because
Nice.
sometimes what you're writing is just crap. Like it's crap. But and then you go, no, 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 they really like that part. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna write this. Now, in the third book, I'll give you guys a bit of spoilers. Is Nora has never been out of Woodville Springs.
Yeah, okay.
So she's lived her whole life. But besides, moving to the town when they were younger and
Hmm.
all that, she wasn't born. So she's born in Woodville Springs, has never been out. So here she is in a whole new world of everything. So learning about the royal family, learning about
Hmm.
different clubs. So when I mean by different clubs, just think outside the box there, what I mean by clubs. So, she's learning about all these things and then learning about what Oliver was really like. So there's
Hmm.
the side of Oliver she saw back in Woodville Springs is not the Oliver that she sees now in
Oh,
England. And she starts finding out things about what he's into and
nice.
what he likes. And she's like, oh, you've never done that because they've never they've never been together.
Mm,
So they've always been, like kissing and, and then he would run away
mm,
because he knew what he was getting her into.
mm.
So it's sort of like that sort of dynamic. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll let your imagination go with that one because
I'm
it's a bit
very excited. I'm so
because
excited. When you said clubs, I was like, oh, all right.
yes. So just think what I mean by clubs.
Yes.
And she meets dragons as well. So
That's
she's
so exciting.
yeah. So I'm bringing
Oh,
the dragon horde into it. She
nice.
meets the alpha dragon, and yeah. So that's another side of it as well. And so again, she doesn't know anything about dragons because
Yeah.
you find out in the first book, um, she's part of the pack, but
Hmm.
she's not really. Like
Yeah.
Ashton keeps things from her, and her brother
Hmm.
keeps things from her, and makes her do things, and she's just like, well, why am I doing it? They never explain it to her. They always keep
Hmm.
it secretive. Oh, we've always got to protect Nora, and
Yeah.
now she's like, no, stuff is, I'm going. And she
Hmm.
goes and discovers a whole new world, a whole new dynamic. And so yeah, so it's interesting to her. It's kind of like you're writing, like the virgin of the story.
Hmm.
Like everything's new to her. She doesn't know anything. And
Yeah, she's kind of
um
sheltered away from all of that.
very, yeah,
Yeah.
very much. So when
Hmm.
she discovers this new world, she's like, oh, this is crazy. And so she comes out of her shell more. So, the feisty side that you see is really, there's more to it.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Yeah, I really like her. I'm really excited for that book, so I can't wait for it to come out. And now you've told me there's two more after that. Oh my
two
goodness.
more. Yes, yes. So I'm actually quite excited to write Spencer's book. He's like the last.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I really want to bring out his flirty side and his ability to show love
Mm,
flirting, like
yeah.
that's what I love about books like that. So it'd be interesting to see how what I go with that one. But
Yeah.
yes.
I know I just pulled up book three here on Goodreads, just kind of have it here and I'm really excited.
Yes, so
Add
that one
that.
is called Bound by Power and Duty.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's the third one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. So you were saying before that you had people tell you that they didn't like book two, but they liked book one and vice
Mm.
versa. How was it dealing with that criticism? Did you make any changes after that or just kind of still
Uh
doing your thing?
Look, I you discover this reading as well. So I think this is why I don't get offended.
Mm,
There are some writers I absolutely adore. Like as soon as a new book comes out, I read it instantly. I don't like every book they write, and that's okay. It's
hmm.
it's not like I have to like it. It's just not my type of genre. It's not my
Hmm.
type of. I don't get those feels. So the way I took it was some will, some won't, right? And I will get a lot more great feedback than I do the negative,
Hmm.
but I think this is why I wrote all of the books different.
Yeah.
Like I know when I read, I don't know if you've read, Wolf Pack books, and they're all the same. It's
Hmm.
like just two different characters, same love story, same things happen in it.
Hmm.
Their first sex scenes exactly the same. How they get together in the end's the same. Like I couldn't do that. I wanted to write different books that were based on their personality. That's how I had it in my brain. So, when I was writing the first one, I knew it was going to be a slow burn, because they're both she's discovering what's going on.
Hmm.
When I wrote the second one, I knew it was going to be fast paced. I knew it was going to be full on. Right. And
Yeah.
then now that I'm writing the third, I knew there was going to be possessiveness. I knew it was going to be like a controlling sort of nature from both sides of the
Yeah.
characters. Um, so I think when I read, I don't like all versions of those genres either. So, it's kind of like, okay, so what when someone reads it, I don't expect everyone to love it. I just expect everyone just to give it a go and then just give me their feedback about what they want. And then I'll go, okay, maybe I'll write you another book and then I can write the version that you like, and I think that's what I love about arcs. I think this is why
Hmm.
any writer, and I used to be part of many, you get different personalities of people liking certain things. So you take their feedback as not, I'm not going to go in and change it. I might just write something for you instead.
But as you were saying before about book one being a slow burn, usually I don't like slow burns, but
Mm,
I liked yours because the story itself was like the storyline was great. You know, it kept me captivated. Whereas
yeah,
sometimes in slow burns, the story is also slow, but yours was not. And that's why I think I liked it
yeah.
so much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I was the same. So I used to like read books and I was like, I don't like pointless chapters. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm reading, I'm like, yeah, I get why you're telling that, but it's not necessary. Like that's how I used to see them. Um, so when I was writing, I always wanted to write that every every chapter had a reason. So there was actually a reason to build up the story. And I also wanted to end every chapter on sort of like a cliffhanger, like so you go, all right, okay, that's what you're thinking. Now I want to see what the next part will be. And especially when you find, when she's in the town, everything is new to her. Everything is like is a cliffhanger to her. She's like, oh, what's this about? What's this about my mom? And what's this about my friends? And everything sort of happens. And so it's there was enough twists in it to keep you reading. And that's what I find when I'm reading books. Like I find that there's just no twists in books. It's just like, oh, you're just telling a story and it just keeps going on and on and on. But I find that like when the dynamic happens between all the characters, where um she so hard not to give stuff away, isn't it? Um when she discovers that, what she thought her life was is totally different. And she's trying to figure out, and you as a reader is also trying to figure out who's telling the truth, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. If you read book one, you think Drake is the good guy. Like he's very much like on her side of, I'll tell you whatever you want, where Ashton looks like the bad guy. So you kind of flip it and you go, well, okay, what's actually happening? So you, as a reader, become Eden and you trying to now figure out who is the right side that she should be on.
Yeah, I definitely, there was a moment there I was like, man, I hope Eden goes with Drake because Ashton was really making me upset. I'm like,
Yes,
like, sir, can you get it together?
yes,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what you start getting angry with Ashton because you're like, oh my God, just tell her, like everyone's saying, be honest with her, just, but he's like, no, no, can't do that. Sorry, so he
Yeah.
sort of backtracks a lot.
And
Um,
the twists in those books, I did not see. I had a hunch about, oh, what was her male friend's? Is it Nick? Is it
Alex from
Alex? Alex, yes,
Eden's.
thank you. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, Alex,
Alex.
yeah.
Yeah, so Alex, I kind of had a hunch, but wasn't sure. But Harper, I could not believe that she was like that, like the twists for
Mm.
that. I did not see any of that coming. I don't know. I just assumed that everyone in New York was, you know, I don't want to say normal, but not,
Yeah, they're just her
yeah,
friends. They're
yeah,
her
yeah, just
friends
her
in New
friends. Yeah.
York. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as you do, you meet people in your
Mm-hmm.
life. And
Yeah.
um, that's another thing that people are saying is like, oh, you're going to write a book about her friends as well. She's got other friends. She mentioned she's got Penny, she's got God, I forgot too, Chris, Max, so she's got those characters. And even in Harper's, there's a few people in Harper's with Jax's brothers. So Jax has other brothers. So they were like, oh, you're going to write their story. And I might finish this
Yeah.
and go, oh, yep, I think I might go back and
Do
write
some other
others.
ones.
But I think this series is five. Like this is the end of this sort of
Yeah.
um, version, and then I might think of what the next ones will be. And yeah,
Yeah, I'm really excited. There's just, I'm excited for all three of the books that you're going to be putting out over the next, year, 2 years, whatever, however long it takes you. But I think it's hard if I couldn't pick a favorite between one and two. I really liked them both equally,
Mm.
but in different ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You
and that's what
know?
I mean. They're two different books,
Yeah,
so
they're two
yeah.
different books,
Mm.
but yeah, they're really good. I really liked book two. Um, it would be cool, just throwing this out there, to have a little novella about maybe Harper's parents when they were younger.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a
yeah. That's
prequel.
another one you could do. Um,
Yeah.
why they are
Mm-hmm.
together and how they
Yeah.
had Harper, and yeah,
Yeah.
because
Because
the dynamics between them is crazy as well.
hmm
Yeah.
I really liked her dad. Like you know, for his like quirkiness, like his shop and
Mm.
like like I don't know, I found it very cozy, like his personality there in the beginning. Oh, so when you were writing these books, did it come out pretty fluid or did you take any breaks but while you were writing these books?
Yeah, yeah, so the first one, yes. My first one nearly took me 3 years to write. My second one, no. My second one took me about 6 months. I think this one's probably going to take me about three because at the moment I've got so much up here, I need to spill it onto a page. Um, but yeah, I think the method that I do when I write is I have a sound recorder, microphone recorder on my phone, and I also have notes. So when I'm thinking of something, I like, oh, I'm going to record me saying that this is how I want the story to go, and this is what happens, and then I put notes in my phone and like because I can't do that in front of my kids. Oh yes, this is the sex scene that I want. No, so I was like, I write that in note form, and I go, okay, this is what I want to do, and oh, I'd really like it if that happened, and oh, imagine if that happened. And, so I put those sort of things in my
Yeah.
phone. And then when I then start writing is I map out each chapter
Yeah.
first. So I map out, okay, I know I want to do with Eden and Ashton, it's a bigger book. So I originally only mapped out 30 chapters and ended up being, I think it's like 42 or something. So it
Yeah,
ended up
it
being
was.
a lot more where Harper and Jax is a bit smaller.
Hmm.
Um, so when I was mapping out Eden's, I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to go back and tell that story, like,
Mm.
because in the original, when I wrote the first one, there wasn't much of Harper and her interaction with Eden, like how
Hmm.
she actually came out. She was only mentioned a few times. So I'm like, oh no, I actually have to put a lot of chapters in there about her.
Yeah.
So then to put her into the second.
To kind of like
So
tie it all together.
yeah, you kind
Yeah.
of have to do that. If you're doing a series, you actually have to write the series. Like, have you ever, this is what I hate. Have you ever watched a movie? Cartoons do this all the time, and I hate it. And I watch it with my kids, and you watch the first one, and they mention, oh, this is what happens. And then the third movie, it's like totally different to what they said in the first. You clearly know there's been
Yes.
a different
Yep.
writer.
Yes.
It's like it's my pet hate. So when I'm writing the books and I go, oh, what have I said there? I actually have to go reread what I wrote, and I'm like, oh yes, I remember I put that in there. So then I have to put that in there. So you sort of have to keep going back, and knowing that they all do come together. The only one I haven't really mapped out yet is the last. So that's Spencer's book. I know how I want it to end, but I haven't mapped out what's going to happen. And because each of my books sort of the characters interact with each other, so Eden and Harper are sort of one book, like there's one, and then Nora Oliver, and then the next one with Logan and Zach, and it's actually Bonnie. I'll give you a hint there. So they sort of intertwine together. So and then the last book is sort of on its own where it tells the end. Um, so you sort of have
Nice.
to prepare
Yeah.
yourself. You can't just write. I know some writers who do that. Some writers are amazing and they just go bleh and they just
Yeah.
write it. But I can't do that. I have to sort of map out how I want it to all come together. And I think I want to map out the emotion of how
Hmm.
you're going to feel when reading it. So that's why I plan it a bit more structured that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think I feel like that's the method I would do is like to map things
Mm.
out like that. I am not a writer, though. I'm not a writer. I'm a reader. I'm not good at writing. But with your writing, you're a mom, you work, you write. Do you find it hard to read anymore? Do you ever get to read just for yourself?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Like I have, I've got so many books. I haven't read the Fourth Wing book. I bought them all. I just haven't read them because I just haven't had the time. It's very hard. It's very hard to read and write at the same time, though, because when you're writing, you've got ideas in your head about what you want to do. But then when you're reading, you're sort of diving into that series. And so you sort of fall in love and you want to keep reading. But then when I go back to writing, I get confused about what I'm reading or writing. So I sort of have to stop reading. I tried to do that with the first and second. I was like, oh, I have to read. It's for my own mental health. Um, but then when I was actually doing it, I was like, oh, no, I can't. So this third one, I think this is why it's going to not take me as long, is because I'm just focusing on writing and finishing off what I want to write for this book. And then I go back and read. But like I still have you still have brain fog about what you want your book to be. So at the moment, I've been diving into like really corny movies, corny romance movies, just
Tell
to sort of
what ones? Tell me.
so do you know those corny apps, the corny movie apps like Galaxy TV and Drama
Oh,
Short?
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've gotten like subscriptions for like a week, and I've just like binged watched them. I like watching passion flicks, passion
Oh,
flicks as
yes.
well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just binge watching a few of them because I think when you're writing, you miss those emotional moments. It's very hard to write emotional moments and connection. As a person, you fall in love with someone. It's instant for you, and you feel it, but you need to write how you feel it. You need to write what they're feeling at the time. And that's a lot of the time I think gets missed in books because they just want to rush into finishing off or rush into telling a storyline. But I'm like, no, no, I want to write about the connections between the characters. I want to write about the whole emotion from the good to the bad. And like as a writer, it's very hard to do that unless you're feeling it in the moment. So when I watch these books, I'm like, oh, what was I feeling? So watch these movies, I like, what was I feeling? And then that's when I like, okay. And then I start writing it down or recording myself. So then it makes it easier to then come up with that storyline and what's happening.
Yeah, gosh, I haven't seen a passion flicks, it feels like in a while. I
I
maybe
know.
I need to go back and look at that. Um, yeah, I love thank you so much. I love everything that you've shared with me. Like this is so exciting. I don't I'm like so excited. I'm kind of fangirling right now because I'm so excited for book
Ah,
three. I
love you, Becca.
thank you. I I'm a huge fan
Well, I'm a
of
huge fan of your podcast, by the
oh,
way. I just
thank
I just
you.
listened to your friend Lindsay yesterday.
Oh
He was
God.
do and
So,
and look, I am with you on that. Like, I don't understand big dicks.
right? Where do
Like,
you
I
put
get it,
that?
but like, if it doesn't fit, it don't fit. Like, I
Right?
just, yeah.
We
And
just,
candy canes. I said that to you
oh
before. I
gosh.
was like, what is
Oh,
up with things in candy canes?
yeah. Like, first of all, like the stickiness, the
Like, what do you do
UTI.
after?
Yeah.
Like,
Like, oh, I couldn't do it. It was so, oh gosh. You know what's funny? So, I can see like where my demographics are, like people that are listening, and I'm pretty popular in Australia and Mexico. Like,
well, it's probably
yeah.
me in Australia.
Well, thank you for that. I
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
it.
your. If it says Sydney, Australia, that's me. So just so you know.
That's it's so funny. And Mexico. I'm
Oh, that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
big in Mexico, which thank you to everyone in Mexico that's listening right now. I appreciate you. And anyone else in Sydney. Appreciate you. Um, yeah, it's and I think yeah, here in the United States, which it's a mess right now, right? Um, like I was saying with Lindsay, it is very prudish, to talk about sex and to talk
Yeah.
about anything like that. It's very taboo. And, when I told people that I was starting this podcast, they were, clutch their pearls
Mm.
very, oh my goodness, you're going to talk about that? And I'm
Yes.
like, yeah, I read it. Why am I not going to talk about it? Like, my poor husband gets book reports from me all the time. So I gotta tell him about it.
I love this. I
Uh,
love this.
I actually had him listen. I don't know if you saw this on my Instagram, the intro to the latest book that I'm listening to on audiobook and the dedication. It's the
Oh,
A Soul to
yes.
Keep, the
Yes.
monster one.
Yeah.
So he listened to that. His eyes were so big. He was like, "What is this?" I'm like,
I read my husband some of my chapters, some of my
"Oh yeah,
spicy
what did he
chapters.
think?"
And he's like, oh, okay. And it was funny because I kept giggling, like, when I'm reading it, I'm like, like, like a little schoolgirl. And he's just like, just read it.
That's
And
so
I was
funny.
like, okay. So then I had
Okay.
to like really like put on the voice. It's like,
Yes.
and so when he inserted, it was like that. And he's like, wow,
That's so
it's
funny.
descriptive. I said, yes.
Yeah, well, we like it descriptive.
You need this, and that's it. You need it to be like you need to be in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like when you read spicy scenes, you want to read it that it's actually happening to you. Like this is your life,
Hmm.
and often I tell people this, like, oh, I don't know how you could read those books, and I said, well, there's a positive and a negative to them, right? Like I get that people don't like those spicy things and they don't want to talk about it. That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
happy to accept that. But for me, I think to discover you as a woman, right? And
Hmm.
discover your self-worth and
Hmm.
how a man should treat you and how a
Hmm.
man should respect you and make you feel worthy. I think you're going to find that in a lot of these books.
Hmm.
And I think that's where the underlining thing is, where, I actually get people who, you know, are saying to me, oh, me and my husband aren't communicating. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you a book. So I give them a motivational book, like a marriage book. And then
Hmm.
I also give them, read this as well. Because
Hmm.
I think hand in hand, they go together. And I
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
think you need to just let go. Like I've even, like, my mom has read my book and she was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I should read this. This is what you wrote. I said, I know, I do apologize, mum, but just go with it.
Yeah.
You'll like it.
Hmm.
And she was like, oh, this is very good. I can't believe you wrote this. And I said, yeah, like it's sometimes you just got to, if you don't like those scenes, you just skip them. Like I always say this to my
Hmm.
friend. She's like, oh, I'm not into reading it. I was like, okay, well, it's coming because
Yeah,
it
there's a lot of
literally
angst and stuff going
it
on. Yeah.
starts
Yeah.
and you go, okay. So she just skips the finish. She goes, oh, that's yeah, fine. Like, and
Yeah.
that's what people have asked me. Are you going to do a closed door version? And I was like, oh, I might, but I think it's going to be very hard for me to write a closed door version for
Mhm.
Harper and Jax because their spicy scenes are for a reason.
Mm.
And there's certain moments in these spicy scenes that have there's metaphors to them. And where Eden and Ashton are probably could, but I think in the second one, it's very much, and the same as the third. I don't know if I
Hmm.
could write a closed door version for the third because
Yeah.
um, it's about Nora's self discovery of herself.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's very hard to write that if you can't explain what she's starting to discover. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I just think just give it a crack. Find the genres you like. Like if you're
Yeah.
not gonna like paranormal, that's fine. Like I think my next series is gonna be rock stars because I like rock
Oh,
stars as well.
you should check out I think Ray Stone has some Rockstar ones, and then Andrea Anderson, the second book of
Yes.
hers is the Rockstar one, which
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah, so
And
do I. Yeah.
um gosh, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, I think yeah, it is good for I think it's good for people to try new things, and if you're into a book and that kind of genre and you're like, maybe this one's not for me, like paranormal or rock star, different
Yeah.
themes like that. That's okay. I can tell you that there's a lot of the, I don't want to call them hallmarky, but the very
Mm. Small towns,
small
that
town,
small town.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the small
Yeah.
town,
My friend
yeah,
loves cowboys. Like she's into cowboys. Like
yeah,
every series she's watched. And yeah, so I was thinking, okay, so you're not gonna like my book because there's no cowboys in my book.
yeah,
But yeah, I think you have a genre. You have a genre,
mm-hmm,
and there's nothing wrong with you finding that genre and reading it.
yep,
I find that sometimes you got to branch out of that genre though.
mm-hmm,
Sometimes you have to sort of read. So if I read full wolf pack books, um, it's sort of all the storylines sort of mash in together
mm-hmm,
sometimes. So I like to break it up. Like I like to read a series and then I go, okay, now I'm going to read a different genre.
mm-hmm,
Like, and that's why I want to do rock stars next. I don't want to do wolf packs or any other paranormal
yeah,
sort of side. I've been told I need to write a vampire book
yes.
because there
I love
is.
vampire books.
I sent my book club friends my first few chapters of this book I'm writing, and there's a vampire king who's mentioned in it,
Hmm.
and Oliver knows them, and everyone's like, "Oh, you need to write about him and his story and write that pack." And I was like,
Yes.
okay. And then obviously there's dragons. So
Hmm.
Oliver's one of Oliver's friends is a dragon.
Nice.
So again, people are like, you need to write about dragons. So yeah, so I might go down that, but I think I need to take a break, go write something else, and then come back
Ah,
again. But I think I'll be writing for life.
oh
I've
yeah.
discovered this is my outlet to let my emotions go. This is my outlet to release. Like I had a really stressful week last week, like as you know, and we couldn't even meet up for half an hour. And I came to Friday and I just went, oh my God. I said to my husband, I said, I know it's because we have Friday fun day on
Mm-hmm.
Fridays, where we get takeout and ice cream and all that naughty stuff on a Friday. And I said, you know what? After we do all that, I said, the kids go to bed. I just need just some time alone.
Hmm.
I just really need to write. And I wrote, 5 chapters. It just came out of me. And then I spent the weekend re-editing and going back and then, doing it again. And now I've got 3 more chapters to write, which is the end. And I was like, I can't believe and I came into Monday and I was a totally different person because I let all that out. And that's what reading does for people too.
Hmm.
Like reading does that where you just off. Hold on. Oh, 2 seconds.
Okay.
My mic died.
Oh no.
Can you hear me though?
I can hear you. Yes, it's
Oh, cool.
okay. Yeah.
It's my computer mic. It just echoes. Yeah, the like I find that's what reading does for people. It's an amazing outlet to just kind of just let everything go and just dive into a world and just feel numb. That's the word I'm going to say. It's just feeling numb and just take a breath, read about something else, read about fantasies, read about whatever you want, and then you start fresh the next day.
Hmm. It is very important to take care of your mental health, and I feel like it sounds like writing does that for you. It helps really gives you that outlet. And reading, like you said, reading
Mm,
is that for me. It
mm,
gives me, I don't want to say an escape, but it does. Like it helps
it
me just
does.
kind of like
Mm,
calm down. And I feel like that is with a lot of readers, it's a good way to escape from, something that you're going through or
yeah,
just kind of calm down. Like my favorite thing to do is grab a cup of tea and sit by the fire and read. Like it's just very calming.
love
I
that.
love it. I'm like an old lady. Like
No, but it's so good. It's so good to do that sort of stuff. Like
mm-hmm.
I feel like we miss that. We miss that in this crazy world. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have our me time. Like I found that becoming a mum, I missed it. I
Mm-hmm.
totally forgot about it because it's not important when you just become a mum for the first time. I was also working part-time. Like I told you, I was doing copywriting and
Mm-hmm.
editing. And so it was like, I was like, I'm missing this time that's just for me. And I say this to all my friends that are going through, moments in their life. I said, did you have your me time today or yesterday? And they're like, no. And I was like, I can already tell you that's what
Mm-hmm.
you need to do, but
Yep.
we don't do it. It's so sad that we don't
Yeah.
think about ourselves just for a little bit, not forever,
Yep.
please don't be those people that, have kids and that read all weekend while your
Yeah.
kids are screaming at you to
Yeah.
play with you. Because
Yeah.
yes, go play with your kids.
Yep.
But no, what I mean is just an hour a day, like an hour a
Hmm.
day. Like I spend probably about 2 to 3 hours writing, and not every day, but like it's just my outlet to let go. And this is what I say to people: you need an hour a day and you need a day a fortnight.
Hmm.
If you do that, you will find that your mental health will be totally changed.
I love that. Self-care is very important.
Yep.
I do self-care Sundays, usually.
You'll love this.
Yeah,
Yes.
self-care Sunday. So when I had my store, I had a huge self-care section. And so I
Yeah.
had books, I had bath bombs, bath salts, lotions, soaps, all these things for self-care because I'm huge
Yep.
into self-care because I think it's really important. I had teas, coffees, little things,
Oh, I love this.
Oh,
Yes.
it was great. I loved it. And little reflection of me and I just kept telling people the same thing. You got to take care of yourself.
Yep.
Whether it's you going for a drive or it's you, going for a walk or you're reading or you're writing, just do something that is for you, just for you,
For
for that
you.
little bit of
Yep.
time. Because, yeah, that's the same thing here is when I first became a mom, I stopped doing anything for myself because my new
Mm.
priority was my son. He I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped giving myself that me time. And I think over time, I realized, no, it's important. So, yes, got to take care of yourself.
You have to. You have to.
Hmm.
And I think we forget it. Like it's
Hmm.
just, but yeah, I always say that. It, and I think that's what writing has done for me too. Like it's given me the confidence as well. I like, and reading sort of started that. I think reading started it where, you know, it's not it's not about reading, the smart books and all that. It was just
Hmm.
reading. So I said, okay, I don't care what you guys read. I would love it if you read my book, but like I don't, it's just read. Go out there and read, and you just find that you get your confidence back in yourself.
Hmm. And I totally agree. Gosh, I'm so glad that we had this meeting. Like, this has been so wonderful. I'm so excited for your new book. I can't wait. We have to have you back on when it comes out.
When I release it,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I have to have it because I'm gonna pre-order it. I'm gonna download it
Oh,
because
I
I
love
have
this.
to know what happens. And yeah, so I have to have you back on after it's released because I'm gonna need to talk about it. So
You're gonna have so many questions. You're
yeah, I
like,
am.
this
Yes,
part
I'm gonna be
and
like,
this part,
Bess, I'm
and
gonna need to
I know.
know everything.
Yeah, I have that with when I did my first book. So I actually released my first book on Wattpad. This is how I thought, oh, I'm actually going to write the rest of the series. And like it hit number 3 on the MMC, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And like it was all my friends and telling other friends, and
Mhm.
I was like, oh, and they're like, so when's the next one coming out? I was like, I haven't even started. Like this is still done the first. Like,
Yeah.
so yes, but I am excited. I am excited for you to see Nora come out of her shell. I think that's the thing. She's already feisty. You know
Hmm.
that she tells it as it is, and it's interesting to see what she says, I think, and what she learns. And I think what I love about her, she doesn't take no for an answer.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's where Oliver struggles because he's so used to people listening to him and saying, "No, you do what I say," but she don't do that. And
Hmm.
that's what I love about characters. You make them the yin and the yang, and all my characters are like that. Like I find that you find the opposites attract sort of story, because you don't want them to be the same. That's so boring. You want them to be their solution to their problems.
Hmm. Gosh, I'm just so excited. There's so many good things coming from you. I'm very excited. So I I think that's all I have question wise. Is there anything else you want to talk about on here? Or
Amazing. No,
what's your
I think
favorite book of all time? I did ask this of my last
ah
author. What's your favorite book of all time? It's hard
wow,
to
that's
pick
really
one.
hard. I have favorite authors.
Okay,
So
who are your
maybe
favorite authors?
so I don't know if anyone know this. So I'm into Australian authors. I'm Australian. I love Kylie Scott.
Okay.
She writes, God, everything, rock star. She just wrote a new vampire book. And
Ooh.
I love T.L. Swan.
Okay, I'm writing these
Um,
down.
yeah, so T.L. Swan's another Australian. She's amazing.
Okay.
Um, I love Andy Anderson. She's good. And Kelly St. Clair is another one I love
Mm.
reading.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to pick my favorite of all time, it probably, and I'll be a bit nostalgic about this one because it was my first book when COVID hit. I had stopped reading for a bit. Um, and it was my first book I read. It was the first time I went, nah, I'm becoming a part of ARCs now. I'm going to be a beta
Mm-hmm.
reader. This is what started my journey. It would be Elle Kennedy's The Deal.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what started it. So I thought if I had to pick one, it would be more nostalgic. But yeah, it's hard because I love too many books, really.
There,
I'm not.
yeah. There's so many good ones out
Yeah,
there.
so
Yeah.
many good
So
ones.
many good ones. It is hard to pick. It's
I think
hard
it's
to pick.
it's yeah, it's
Almost
really hard to pick.
impossible.
Yeah, and it's like I've just read Wolf by Paisley Hope as
Mm.
well, which was great. It's not my style, but it's a great book. It's very, very, very emotional, and I love
Mm.
those type of books.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard to pick. Yes, one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many
I'm
books out
hoping someone
there.
will say mine's the favorite, but like that's
It's
my
my
goal.
favorite. I do
You
love your
made my
book.
day. Thank you.
I actually, one of my friends, Lena, she's gonna come on here and we're gonna talk all things shifters because we
Yeah,
both love
amazing.
paranormal shifters and stuff like that. And so she's gonna come on next month and do that. And as soon as I got done reading your books, I was like, you have to read these. These are amazing. You're going to love them. And so she's gonna read them. She's very excited. So yeah,
Oh, good.
I tell everyone about books, and
Mm,
I
me
really
too.
want to use this platform to raise up indie authors because I think it's important, especially because
Yeah,
there are so many good books out there, and there are a lot of really great books that are by indie
heaps of.
authors.
I didn't
Yes.
realize this either. Like being part of
Hmm.
an ARC reader, there are heaps of indie writers. There is
Hmm.
so many of them that I like. This book is amazing. Like, where did
Yep.
this person come from?
Yep.
And I work in marketing, so I know what marketing does, what
Hmm.
how you fall in love with a book. And but these books are naturally good.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they are just those writers are amazing writers and they've
Yep.
written something that is breathtakingly beautiful.
Hmm.
And it's rare to find, I suppose that's what it is. It's rare to find an indie writer that I've hated.
Hmm.
I've books that I was like, oh, I didn't get into it, but I never hated it
Hmm.
because they put so much passion and there's a lot of like it's not okay. Don't get me wrong. I love editor and I love my editor. She's amazing. But you can tell some books have been edited
Hmm.
and you're like, where's this part? Why is this
Hmm.
missing? But when you read indie books, it's like, no, 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 they're going to explain everything to you and you're going to get the full story of how it should be. um and that's what I love about them. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like some of the indie books that I've read are way better than the ones that are mass produced,
Mm.
you know?
Yep.
And that's, my opinion, but there's some books that are, these big authors, and they're just very poorly written, or the story is flat, or there's things that have been edited out. You're like, where's
Edited
that?
out because they want to
Mm-hmm.
put them in the next book or
Yep.
something like that. And I read it and I go,
Yep. Yep.
just give me the book.
Mm-hmm. That's,
It's like why I
yes.
love director's cuts of movies, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're getting the actual story,
Yes.
not cutting bits out.
Exactly.
I'm getting the
Yep.
full story of what it should
The
be.
full story. I totally agree. Gosh, I'm so glad we did this. So definitely we have to get together again. I know we've been talking, I think, for over an hour now.
Hour, I think, yeah.
Yeah, an hour. So I'll let you go because I could just sit here and I could talk books for hours and my
I
husband would
know
be
we
like,
can, can't
where?
we? That's the thing.
So
Like
I know.
books are
Books
amazing.
are
So
amazing. Yes. So thank you so much, Mandy, for coming on here. I'm so glad to have met you now via Zoom, but
yes.
um hopefully we can meet in person sometime in the future. That would be so cool. Ever if you're ever at a book con up here in the United States or anything. Do you do book events down there in Sydney? Do you want to plug any that you're gonna do or
Yeah, I was meant to be part of a few, but I pulled out because
okay.
of my work. But yeah, we have heaps, but we have Blush in Queensland and things like
Okay.
that. So
Nice.
one day I'll plug it for
Yes.
you and everyone can come see me.
All right, all right. That sounds good. Well, thank you again so much for being on here, and I can't wait to see book three, and I can't wait to have you back on.
Yes, amazing.
Okay, all right. Good to see you. All right.
See you. Bye,
Bye.
Becca.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you would like more episodes, make sure to subscribe to our Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, and more. All the links are going to be listed below. And we hope you follow us on our social media where we are at the Spicy Book Club Podcast.